She never thought a single act of kindness could cost her everything. The young waitress worked endless shifts just to afford rent and keep food on the table for her little brother. But when she noticed a quiet old man sitting alone in the corner of the diner looking cold and ignored, she made a choice that would change her life forever. She gave him respect, warmth, and the last hot meal she could afford to cover with her own money. The next morning she was humiliated and fired in front of everyone for what her boss called weakness. What she didn't know was that the man she had helped wasn't just another customer. He was the undercover owner of the restaurant chain. And when the truth came out, the entire town froze in shock, because the girl who had been thrown out like trash was about to be lifted higher than she ever dreamed. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and bacon grease, the kind of place regulars came not for luxury but for routine. Old ceiling fans creaked overhead, pushing around the heavy air, while waitresses in faded uniforms darted between booths with forced smiles. Among them was Maya, a young black waitress who seemed invisible to most. At just 22, she carried more weight than many twice her age. Her mother had passed away when Maya was 16, her father long gone before that. She had become the sole guardian of her little brother, Elijah, a bright-eyed 12-year-old who dreamed of becoming a pilot. Every paycheck she earned at the diner went straight into bills, groceries, and Elijah's school supplies. Maya wasn't bitter, though. She found pride in her ability to survive. Each morning she tied her curly hair into a bun, put on her clean but worn uniform, and greeted strangers with a smile that rarely showed how tired she truly was. Her co-workers often whispered about her, how she stayed late to mop the floors, how she skipped breaks so others could rest, how she once slipped her own tip money into the register when the till came up short. To some she was a pushover, to others she was a saint. But to management she was just another replaceable waitress. On one cold Tuesday evening, as the rain tapped against the diner windows and the neon sign flickered, a new customer came in. He wasn't flashy or loud, not like the truck drivers and loud businessmen who often filled the booths. He was an older man, grey-haired, dressed in a plain jacket that had seen better days. He shuffled slowly, his eyes scanning the room, not for food, but for something deeper, maybe a hint of kindness. Most of the staff ignored him, assuming he wouldn't tip or that he'd sit for hours nursing one cup of coffee. But Maya noticed. She noticed the way his hands trembled when he pulled out his wallet, how his shoulders slumped, as though life had pressed down on him too long. She walked over with her usual warmth. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you?" The man hesitated. "Just a cup of coffee, black, that's all I can afford right now." Something tugged at Maya's heart. She'd seen that look before, the look of someone too proud to admit they were hungry. She didn't question him, didn't make him feel small. Instead, she smiled. "Coming right up." In the kitchen, she scraped together something simple, a bowl of hot soup and half a sandwich from the leftovers that were meant to be thrown away. She paid for the meal out of her own pocket, slipping a few dollars into the register so no one would accuse her of theft. When she placed the food in front of him, his eyes widened. "I didn't order this," he said softly. "It's on the house," Maya replied. "Everyone deserves a warm meal on a night like this." For the first time, the old man smiled. It wasn't just gratitude. It was relief. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, while Maya checked on him from time to time, making sure he felt seen, not judged. To her, it was nothing more than human decency. To him, it was everything. But kindness doesn't always come without consequences. The U manager, Mr. Colton, was a stocky man with a permanent scowl. He cared about profits, not people. When he noticed the old man eating food he hadn't paid for, his face turned red. He stormed over to Maya, his voice booming across the diner. "What is this? Did you just give away food for free?" Maya swallowed hard but stood her ground. "I paid for it, sir, out of my tips." He looked hungry and... "I don't care. Have you sold your shoes to cover it?" Colton snapped. "We don't run a charity here. Do you want the rest of the staff thinking they can just hand out meals to every bum who walks in?" The old man lowered his head, ashamed, but Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. "He's not a bum, he's a customer, and treating people with respect should matter more than a couple of dollars." The room went silent. Other diners stared. Some shook their heads in disapproval, others in admiration. But Colton didn't care about admiration. To him, Maya had crossed a line. "You're finished here," he spat. "Take off your apron. You're fired." Gasps echoed through the diner. Elijah's face flashed in Maya's mind, his smile, his schoolbooks, his growing feet needing new shoes. Her heart raced, but she refused to cry in front of Colton. She untied her apron, placed it gently on the counter, and stood tall. "If standing up for what's right means losing this job, then so be it," she said. The old man looked devastated, as though he carried guilt for what had just happened. But Maya gave him one last reassuring smile before walking out into the rain, jobless, her future uncertain. She didn't know that in less than 24 hours, the truth about that old man would turn her entire world upside down. That night, Maya trudged home through the rain, her uniform clinging to her skin, her heart heavier than her soaked shoes. Elijah greeted her at the door with his usual smile, but it quickly faded when he saw her empty eyes. "You're home. Early, what happened?" he asked. Maya forced a smile, brushing his hair back. "Nothing you need to worry about, just things at work." But Elijah was no fool. At 12, he understood more than he should. He wrapped his arms around his sister, silently promising himself that one day he'd take care of her the way she always took care of him. Meanwhile, across town, the old man sat in a small motel room, staring at the steaming cup of coffee he'd carried back with him. He replayed the scene at the diner over and over, the kindness in Maya's voice, the way she risked her own job to make sure he was fed, and the cruel way she was thrown out. He felt guilt twisting inside him, but also something else, determination. Because this man wasn't who everyone thought he was. His name was Henry Lawson, and he wasn't just some broke drifter. He was the original founder and silent majority owner of the very diner chain where Maya worked. Decades earlier, Henry had built the business from a single family cafe into a thriving chain. But after stepping down and handing over daily operations to corporate partners, he'd grown disillusioned. Profits had skyrocketed, but the soul of the diners, the warmth, the community, the sense of family had disappeared. He had come back undercover to see for himself if things had truly changed as much as he feared. What he found that night both broke his heart and opened his eyes. Dawn. Henry put on his worn jacket again, but this time his purpose was clear. He wasn't going back to the diner as a silent observer. He was going back as the man who had the power to change everything. Back at the diner, gossip spread like wildfire. The waitresses whispered in the break room about Maya's firing. Some thought she had been foolish to risk her job for a stranger. Others admired her bravery, though none had spoken up to defend her at the moment. Fear of Colton's wrath had silenced them all. "Can you believe she actually paid for that guy's meal?" one waitress murmured. "I mean, who does that anymore?" "She always was too soft," another replied, though her tone carried a hint of guilt. Colton, on the other hand, strutted around like a king who had crushed rebellion. He bragged about how he nipped it in the bud and wouldn't tolerate weakness on his watch. But deep down, a flicker of unease gnawed at him. Something about the old man's steady eyes lingered in his mind. Later that morning, as the lunch crowd rolled in, the bell above the diner door jingled. In walked Henry, not in his shabby jacket, but in a sharp, tailored suit. His posture was straight, his eyes sharp, his presence commanding. Instantly, the chatter in the room died. The waitresses stared. Colton froze. "Good morning," Henry said in a calm, steady voice that carried authority. "I believe we need to have a conversation." Colton blinked, struggling to place the man he had dismissed just the night before. "Sir, welcome back. Can I get you a table?" Henry's lips curved into a faint smile. "No, I don't need a table. I need the truth." The room tensed. Waitresses exchanged glances. Regular customers leaned closer, sensing something. Unusual was about to unfold. Henry continued. "Last night, a young woman served me. She noticed I was cold, tired, and hungry. She treated me with respect when others ignored me. She even sacrificed her own money to make sure I had a warm meal." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And for that, you humiliated her and fired her in front of everyone." Colton's face drained of color. He stammered, She broke policy. Policy? Henry's voice rose, steady but sharp. Since when does basic human kindness violate policy? Since when is compassion a weakness? I built this chain on values, family, dignity, care, not on greed, fear, and cruelty. Murmurs spread across the diner. The employees who had stayed, silent last night, now shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had witnessed something far greater than a simple firing. Colton's arrogance faltered. "Who exactly are you to come in here and lecture me about how I run this place?" Henry's eyes burned with quiet authority. "My name is Henry Lawson, and this diner, along with every single one in this chain, belongs to me." The room erupted in gasps. Plates clattered. A waitress dropped her notepad. Customers whispered in disbelief. The man they had dismissed as a nobody was, in fact, the hidden owner of it all. Colton's jaw dropped. You're the owner?" Henry nodded. "I may not run the day-to-day anymore, but make no mistake, I still hold the majority stake, and I still have the power to decide who runs these diners." The weight of his words hit Colton like a brick. His once proud posture collapsed into nervous fidgeting. Sweat beaded his forehead. The staff stared at him with newfound contempt, realizing their tyrant of a manager was about to face judgment. Henry turned to the room. "Last night, I saw who truly represented the heart of this business, and it wasn't the man barking orders. It was the young woman who lost her job for doing the right thing. Maya understood what this place was supposed to stand for: kindness, respect, dignity. Without her, this diner lost its soul." For the first time in years, the staff felt something stir, hope. Customers clapped softly, some nodding in agreement. A truck driver shouted, "Bring her back." Others joined in. Colton sputtered, "Sir, you don't understand. She was insubordinate. She embarrassed me." Henry's gaze was ice. "No, Colton. She revealed the truth about you, and the truth is you've embarrassed this company far more than she ever could." The entire diner waited in silence, the air charged with anticipation. Colton's fate and Maya's future hung in the balance. Henry straightened his tie. "Effective immediately, things are going to change around here. And the first step—" He paused, scanning the room, letting the tension stretch until every ear leaned in, "is bringing Maya back where she belongs." The morning sun streamed weakly through the curtains of Maya's small apartment as she prepared Elijah's breakfast of toast and scrambled eggs. It wasn't much, but she made sure to give him the bigger portion. Her mind kept drifting back to the humiliation of the night before. No matter how hard she tried to hide it, Elijah sensed the heaviness in her eyes. "You lost your job, didn't you?" he asked softly. Maya froze, then sighed. "Yes, but don't worry. I'll find another. I always do." Elijah's small voice cracked. "Why does the world punish people for being good?" The question pierced her heart. She had no answer, at least not yet. While she was washing dishes, a knock rattled the door. Confused, she wiped her hands and opened it. Standing there was the very man she had helped the night before, only now he looked completely different. Gone was the shabby jacket and tired shuffle. He wore a crisp suit, his shoulders squared, and his eyes burned with purpose. "Good morning." "Maya," he said warmly. She blinked. You found me? What are you doing here?" Henry smiled gently. "I owe you an apology, and more than that, I owe you the truth." He stepped inside, and Elijah, wide-eyed, studied him curiously. Maya gestured for the man to sit, though confusion clouded her mind. "I wasn't honest with you yesterday," Henry began. "My name is Henry Lawson. I'm the founder and majority owner of Lawson's Diners." Maya nearly dropped the dish in her hand. "Wait, you own the diner? You mean you—" Her voice trailed off as realization dawned. "Yes," Henry said. "Last night, you thought I was just a poor, old man who couldn't afford dinner. And I let you think that, because I needed to see how my employees treated people when they thought no one important was watching. What I saw was heartbreaking. Most ignored me. Your manager humiliated me. But you treated me with kindness and dignity. You even sacrificed your own money for me." His voice thickened with emotion. "That's the kind of spirit this company was built on, and it's the spirit we've lost." Maya's heart pounded. She shook her head, struggling to process. "I didn't do it for recognition. I couldn't let someone go hungry, that's all." Henry smiled. "And that's exactly why you deserve recognition." Elijah's eyes lit up. "Does this mean my sister gets her job back?" Henry leaned forward. "Not just her job. She deserves more than that. She deserves to be the face of what this company should stand for." Maya's breath caught. She had never been offered anything but endless shifts and criticism. To hear someone, especially the owner, say she deserved more felt surreal. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed with messages. Friends, co-workers, even customers were talking about what had happened at the diner that morning. Videos had already begun circulating on social media. Someone had recorded Henry's dramatic reveal in the restaurant, the moment he announced who he was, and defended Maya. By the time she opened the video, it had already gone viral in town. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments praising her. Finally, someone stood up for what's right. "That girl has more courage than all of management combined. She should be running that place, not that bully Colton." Maya's hands trembled as she read the flood of support. She had gone from invisible waitress to the center of attention overnight. Henry placed a reassuring hand on hers. "The community sees your worth, and so do I. That's why I'm offering you not just your job back, but a chance to work directly with me to restore these diners to what they were meant to be. I want you on my leadership team." Maya's jaw dropped. "Leadership team? Me? I don't have a degree. I've never even managed anyone before." Henry chuckled. "You have something far more important than a degree. You have heart, and heart can't be taught." Elijah grinned proudly at his sister, his chest puffed with pride. "See? I told you. You're amazing." For the first time in a long time, hope bloomed in Maya's chest. But while her life was beginning to transform, another storm was brewing. At the diner, Colton sat in his office, his fists clenched tight. He had watched Henry's speech play out in real time, humiliated in front of both staff and customers. His authority, his pride, his reputation, it had all been shredded in an instant. "That girl," he muttered bitterly, "that girl ruined everything." He knew Henry had the power to remove him, and if the community kept rallying around Maya, his career in the restaurant world would be over. The thought burned his pride. He had clawed his way into management through intimidation and control, and he wasn't about to lose it all to some young waitress who thought kindness could save the world. Colton began plotting. He knew the company still had corporate executives and board members who cared more about profit margins than compassion. If he could spin the story right, make it seem like Henry was being manipulated by a naive girl, maybe he could turn them against her. And if that didn't work, he was prepared to go lower, much lower. That evening, while the town buzzed with excitement over Maya's story, Colton made a few quiet phone calls. His eyes gleamed with malice. "This isn't over," he whispered to himself. "Not by a long shot." Meanwhile, Maya sat at the edge of her bed, scrolling through messages of support, overwhelmed by the sudden wave of attention. Elijah sat beside her, leaning against her shoulder. "Sis," he said softly, "do you think this is the start of something new? Like, maybe our lives are finally going to change?" Maya squeezed his hand. For the first time, she dared to believe it. "Yes, Elijah, I think everything is about to change." But neither of them realized just how dangerous Colton's next moves would become, or how deeply the truth about Henry's company would shake their world. The next morning, Maya woke earlier than usual. Instead of putting on her faded waitress uniform, she chose her best blouse, one she had only worn to Elijah's school meetings. Standing in front of the cracked bathroom mirror, she hardly recognized herself, not because her clothes were different, but because, for the first time in years, her eyes held something she thought she had lost forever: confidence. Henry arrived to pick her up in a sleek black car that looked out of place on her quiet street. Neighbors peeked through curtains, whispering as Maya climbed inside. Elijah waved from the porch, his face shining with pride as if his sister were already a hero. At headquarters, Henry introduced Maya to a room full of corporate staff and board members. The suits eyed her skeptically, some with curiosity, others with judgment. She wasn't one of them. She was a waitress from the floor, but Henry's presence silenced their doubts. "This young woman," Henry began, his voice firm, "reminded me of what Lawson's Diners was built on. She didn't see me as a customer to dismiss or a dollar sign to chase. She saw me as a human being, and that is the heart of hospitality." Maya shifted nervously as all eyes turned to her. She had never spoken to a room full of executives before. Her palms sweated, but she remembered Elijah's words. "You're amazing." She straightened her shoulders. "I didn't help him because I thought anyone was watching," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I helped because I know what it feels like to be invisible, to be ignored. People come to diners not just for food, but for warmth, for the feeling that they matter. That's what we've lost, and that's what I want to help bring back." The room was quiet for a beat. Then, slowly, a few executives nodded. Others murmured in agreement. Henry smiled. "This is the voice we need. From now on, Maya will serve as my personal advisor on customer and employee relations." It was an unprecedented move. Never in the chain's history had a waitress been elevated to such a role. News of it spread quickly, and soon the community embraced her even more. Customers who had once seen her carrying trays now saw her face in newspapers and online articles. She was becoming a symbol, not just of kindness, but of hope. But while Maya's star was rising, Colton's fury grew darker. He sat alone in his cluttered office at the diner, watching news clips of Maya standing beside Henry. Each headline made his blood boil. "Waitress becomes advisor after standing up for kindness." "Local hero to help revive diner chain." Every word was a knife. "She's turning into a saint in their eyes," he muttered. "But saints fall, and when she does, I'll be there to push her down." Colton began digging. He called contacts in corporate, feeding them venomous whispers. "She's inexperienced. She doesn't understand business. She'll bleed. Money with her soft ideas." Some listened, others didn't. But Colton knew rumors could rot trust faster than truth could build it. Not stopping there, he turned his sights on Maya personally. He hired a private investigator to dig into her past, hoping to uncover something, anything that could tarnish her image. Old debts, school records, family struggles. He wanted it all. Meanwhile, Maya poured herself into her new role. Henry mentored her closely, teaching her about budgets, staffing, and leadership. But more often he listened, letting her share stories from the floor that executives had long forgotten to hear. "Do you know how it feels when a single mum comes in with her kids, counting every coin to buy one plate to share?" Maya asked one afternoon during a meeting. "Do you know how it feels for the waitress who watches that and wants to help but can't because she's afraid of being fired?" Executives shifted uncomfortably, realizing how far they had drifted from the soul of their business. Henry beamed with pride. "This is why we need her voice." Maya also began reconnecting with the staff at her old diner. Some approached her shyly, apologizing for not standing up for her when Colton fired her. She forgave them with grace. "Fear makes people silent," she told them, "but we don't have to stay silent anymore." Soon she organized a meeting, where employees from different locations shared their struggles. Long hours, unfair managers, fear of speaking up. For the first time, they felt heard. But Colton wasn't finished. Late one evening, he met with a shadowy group of executives who resented Henry's return. They saw Maya not as hope, but as a threat to profit margins. "She's dangerous," Colton insisted. "She'll push us into losses with her charity ideas. Do you really want some waitress dictating company policy?" One executive narrowed his eyes. "And what do you suggest?" Colton leaned forward, his voice low and poisonous. "We find her weakness. We expose her. The public may love her now, but if we can paint her as irresponsible or dishonest, she'll fall just as quickly." As she rose, the room was quiet, but the seed had been planted. Back at home, Maya tucked Elijah into bed. He hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you, sis. Everyone at school is talking about you. They say my sister is a hero." Her eyes stung with tears, but she smiled. "I'm just doing what Mum taught us, to always help when we can." As she closed his door and sat in the living room, exhaustion washing over her, she didn't realize her phone was already being tracked. Colton's hired investigator had begun digging into her life, and soon secrets, both real and twisted, would be used to try to destroy her. For now, though, she allowed herself one rare moment of peace. She looked out the window at the stars and whispered, "Maybe things really are changing." But fate had other plans. The storm Colton was conjuring was about to strike, and it would test Maya's strength more than anything she had faced before. The next week should have been the happiest of Maya's life. She was finally being treated with respect, her voice was reaching people she had never dreamed of influencing, and Elijah walked taller every time he introduced himself as her brother. But shadows were creeping in, subtle at first, then darker. It began with whispers. Anonymous posts appeared on local forums claiming Maya wasn't who she pretended to be. One message accused her of stealing tips from co-workers. Another claimed she had lied about paying for customers' meals, saying she pocketed extra cash on the side. Screenshots of bank statements, clearly doctored, started spreading, showing transactions that painted her as irresponsible with money. Maya was stunned. She sat at her small kitchen table with her phone in her hands, scrolling through the comments, her chest tightening. "Why are they saying this? I've never done any of this." Elijah, sitting across from her, clenched his fists. "It's lies. They're jealous because you're finally being recognized." But Maya knew lies could be louder than truth if left unchecked. The next blow came when a local news station ran a story, citing anonymous sources, suggesting that Henry's sudden decision to promote her was reckless and based on emotion rather than merit. "Is Lawson's Diners at risk of being run by a waitress with no business training?" the anchor asked. By morning, corporate board members were restless. Some called Henry directly, urging him to reconsider his trust in Maya. "She's becoming a liability," one executive argued. "The public loves her now, but these rumors are gaining traction. We can't afford a scandal." Henry slammed his hand on his desk. "The scandal isn't Maya. It's the way we've treated employees for years. She's the only one reminding us what matters." Still, even Henry could see the damage spreading. Meanwhile, Colton watched with satisfaction from his office, scrolling through reports from the investigator he had hired. He had orchestrated the smear campaign carefully, feeding false information to the press while making sure his own hands looked clean. "Let's see how long the saint can stay standing," he sneered. But Maya refused to crumble. At the next company meeting, she walked into the boardroom with her head held high. Whispers followed her, executives eyeing her with suspicion. Henry sat at the head of the table, his jaw tight, his eyes full of concern. Before the meeting began, Maya stood. "I know there are rumors about me. I know some of you think I don't belong here. But let me ask you this. When was the last time any of you worked a double shift on your feet praying the tips would cover groceries? When was the last time you smiled at a customer while your stomach growled because you skipped your own meal? I've lived that. I understand the people who keep this company alive. And if that makes me unqualified in your eyes, then maybe you've forgotten what we stand for." The room fell silent. Even the skeptics shifted uncomfortably. Henry's chest swelled with pride. But outside those walls, the attacks intensified. Someone leaked Maya's address online. Strangers left cruel notes on her door, calling her a fraud. Elijah came home from school shaken. Classmates had repeated things they'd seen on the internet, mocking his sister. That night, Maya broke down for the first time. She buried her face in her hands at the kitchen table, her shoulders shaking. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here." Henry, who had come to check on her, placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "No, Maya, that's exactly what they want you to think. But you belong here more than anyone, and I won't let them tear you down." Elijah piped up, his young voice fierce. "They can say whatever they want. I know who you are, and so does everyone who's ever met you." Maya wiped her tears, her heart swelling with both pain and determination. She couldn't let Elijah see her give up. She couldn't let Colton win. The next day, Henry called a press conference. Cameras flashed as he and Maya stood side by side. Henry spoke first, his voice steady. Over the past week, false stories have circulated about Maya, stories meant to destroy her character. Let me be clear. Maya is everything this company should aspire to be. I've reviewed every accusation. They are baseless. What happened here is simple. An act of kindness threatened those who thrive on cruelty, but I will not let cruelty win. Then he handed the microphone to Maya. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. I'm not perfect, she began. I've struggled, I've made mistakes, and I've lived through hardships some of you can't imagine, but I have never betrayed. The values my mother taught me: honesty, compassion, and courage. The truth is, I helped a man one night because I saw him as human, not because I wanted anything in return. If that makes me weak, then I'll gladly be weak. But if you believe kindness is strength, then I promise I'll keep fighting for it. No matter what lies are told about me. The crowd erupted with applause. Reporters shouted questions. The video spread online within hours, dwarfing the smear campaign. People rallied behind her once again, flooding the diner's social media with support. Customers lined up outside locations holding signs. We stand with Maya. Colton watched the coverage with fury. His plan had backfired. Maya was more beloved than ever, but instead of retreating, he grew more dangerous. If lies won't bring her down, he muttered, pacing in his darkened office, then maybe the truth will. His investigator had uncovered something hidden in Maya's past, a debt her late mother had left behind, one tied to a powerful creditor who could make life very difficult. Colton smiled coldly. She thinks the storm is over, he whispered, but the worst is just beginning. The morning sun barely pierced through the clouds as Maya sat at the small kitchen table with Elijah across from her. Her phone had been buzzing non-stop for days, but today was different. Today, a final storm was approaching, and she could feel it in her chest, a tension that had nothing to do with rain. Colton's next move hit hard and fast. Overnight, he had leaked sensitive but completely falsified financial information about Maya to the press and the company's board. Headlines screamed accusations. Waitress advisor accused of embezzlement. Lawson's diners could face financial ruin due to inexperienced employee. Within hours, Maya's inbox flooded with threats, demands, and messages questioning her integrity. Even some of the previously supportive staff looked nervous. Maya froze, staring at the screen. Her hands trembled. Elijah placed a reassuring hand over hers. We knew this wouldn't be easy. You're strong, sis. You can get through it. But strength felt fragile as she realized the power of Colton's attack. Not only was her reputation on the line, but the diners she loved, the community she wanted to protect, were under threat. Henry arrived at her door without warning, his face set with determination. We're not backing down, he said firmly. Colton may be trying to play dirty, but we have the proof and we have the truth, and it will come out. Maya took a deep breath. I never imagined someone could be so cruel. Henry shook his head. People like Colton fear what they cannot control, but today we'll turn his fear into his downfall. The press conference was set at the headquarters, and the room buzzed with reporters and cameras. Maya, dressed simply but confidently, stood beside Henry. Behind them, a screen displayed audited reports showing every dollar of her personal transactions, every tip she had ever collected, and records of her payments for customers' meals. It was a meticulous, airtight presentation. Henry addressed the crowd first. Over the past week, false stories have been spread to discredit Maya, to attack her character, and to intimidate anyone who dares to act with kindness. All accusations are baseless. Every claim has been investigated thoroughly. Then he gestured to Maya. Now I will let her speak. Maya took a steadying breath, looking out at the sea of cameras, flashes, and anxious faces. I've spent my life working to survive and taking care of my brother. I've seen cruelty in the world, and I've seen what happens when good people stay silent. I never wanted recognition. I never wanted rewards. But I do want to show that kindness matters, that standing up for others matters. Her voice grew firmer. Colton, if you think that spreading lies can undo the truth, you are mistaken. Every meal I've given, every shift I've worked, every choice I've made was for the people who believed they were invisible. And that includes you, sir." The room gasped. Colton, standing at the back with his allies, felt a cold chill run down his spine. He had underestimated her strength and Henry's unwavering support. Henry smiled, a calm but commanding presence. "The evidence speaks for itself. Maya's actions have been recorded and verified. Her integrity is unquestionable. The young woman you tried to destroy has done nothing but exemplify the values this company was built on." Then, Henry revealed the final twist. Colton's emails, calls, and fabricated claims had been documented. They had proof of his smear campaign, the private investigator's false reports, and attempts to manipulate board members. He had created the storm, and now the storm would expose him. The room fell silent as Henry turned to Colton. "Because of your actions, disciplinary measures are being taken immediately. You are suspended pending a full investigation, and your position as manager is under review. The company you thought you controlled has never belonged to you, but more importantly, the community you tried to manipulate knows the truth." The reporters erupted, shouting questions, cameras flashing. Colton's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Maya's heart pounded, but she held her head high. The humiliation, the fear, the endless hours of doubt, they had all led to this moment. The room watched as the truth finally set her free. Outside, a crowd of supporters had gathered, holding signs, "We stand with Maya. Kindness wins, justice for the waitress." The sight gave her strength, a visible reminder that her courage had inspired more than just Henry or her own family. It had inspired an entire community. Elijah, standing beside her, whispered, "You did it, sis. You didn't let him win." Maya hugged him tightly. "No, Elijah. We didn't let him win. We never gave up." By the end of the day, social media had exploded. Videos of the press conference went viral. News outlets praised Maya not only for her bravery, but for exposing corruption, standing up for her values, and showing the world that courage and kindness could topple even the most manipulative adversaries. Colton had been publicly shamed. His career in ruins, his reputation destroyed. The employees who had feared him now saw him for what he truly was, a man who tried to break others to protect his own ego. Maya, however, emerged stronger than ever. Henry offered her a permanent leadership position, overseeing employee training and customer relations for all branches. It was more than she had ever dreamed of. That evening, Maya returned home with Elijah. They sat on the porch, looking out at the city lights, finally able to breathe. "Do you think it's really over?" Elijah asked. Maya smiled, pulling him close. "For now. But if this teaches us anything, it's that standing up for what's right is never easy, and sometimes it comes with storms. But storms pass, and the truth always rises." And somewhere, far away, Colton realized the hard way, that no lie could withstand the force of genuine courage and kindness. The diner chain would thrive once more, not because of profits, but because of heart, honesty, and people like Maya. And for the young waitress who had risked everything for a stranger, life had finally turned in her favor, leaving everyone speechless at the power of integrity and compassion.